No system, plus easy, plus brain, plus family harmony, plus hot blood. In the Tang Dynasty, a time of hunting for power, the protagonist travels back as the second son of Li Erdi. At the beginning, he overturns the alliance of the Wei River, opens his own mansion, and chooses to have a lewd development, but the Tang Dynasty was surrounded by wolves and tigers both inside and outside, so they refused external enemies, fought against aristocratic families, supported the Tang Dynasty, and expanded thousands of miles. If you don't argue, then you will argue. It all depends on whether your elder brother will die or not. As for that black-bellied little nine, you must not let him rise to the top, otherwise your own life will be in danger and the Tang Dynasty will be in danger. Finally, ask Li Qingque, will you become the emperor? If I can't teach you, then let your son take over. Chapter 01. Eternal Regrets Only Through Time Travel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The king of Qin rebelled and killed him, leaving no one behind. Protect the Qin king's family. The sound of knives and guns, arrows and crossbows, and shouts of killing. Tang Dynasty, Chang'an City, on the night of the Xuanwu Gate incident on July 2, the 9th year of the Wuda reign. The next day, the morning light shone faintly. After a night of bloody battle, the Qin prince's mansion was now in ruins, covered in knives, guns, and arrows. It's not good, there's something wrong with the king of Wei. A young eunuch ran all the way, shouting loudly. Suddenly, he stumbled and fell to the ground, but immediately got up and continued to run wildly. Upon hearing the shout, surrounded by a small group of Xuanjia guards, Chang Sun, who was about to return to the Qingque hall, couldn't help but be shocked and shouted, "Let him come over." King Wei, who is his legitimate second son Li Tai, nicknamed Qingque, is now 7 years old. When he heard that he had an accident, how could the Changsun family not be surprised? "Silence, those who stir up will be beheaded." Changsun shouted loudly as he returned to the Qingque hall. In the Qingque hall, the eunuchs and maids stood carefully, motionless, holding their breath and concentrating. This Changsun family, who is known as the Eternal Wise Queen in later generations, has been skilled in archery and horsemanship since childhood, and has been decisive in killing. It seems that she still holds a sword in her hand, with a bloody blade. This is the master who can kill. At this moment, in the Qingque hall, Li Tai, the fourth son of the king of Qin and the prince of Wei, was lying on the bed. Although his face was handsome, his face was pale and his eyes were tightly closed. Looking at her son's appearance, Changsun hurriedly probed with her hand, her breath completely gone, and her heart was greatly shaken. She exclaimed urgently, "Where is the imperial physician?" At the same time, he asked in a low voice, "Yuan Yang, what happened?" Yuan Yang is the dowry maid of the Changsun family. Last night, the king of Qin launched the Xuanwu Gate incident, and the main military force of the Qin prince's mansion followed the Qin prince's actions, making the guards of the Qin prince's mansion weaker. Last night, Changsun led a small team of Xuanjia army, family guards, and servants to guard the Qin prince's mansion. At the same time, all the children in the mansion, including those born to other concubines, were gathered in the Qingque hall, and Yuan Yang led a group of eunuchs and palace maids to guard them. At this moment, Yuan Yang was behind the Changsun family, looking quite nervous. When the young lady asked a question, she quickly replied, saying, "Miss, previously, I led several princes and princesses to guard inside the palace. However, a thief broke in outside the palace with high martial arts skills. When everyone in the palace worked together to resist, the king of Wei fell and fell. When he helped him up, he fell into a state of fainting and had already had a cup of tea. A cup of tea lasted for about 10 minutes, and Changsun's heart sank slightly upon hearing it. At this moment, an old man came to the palace with the support of a Xuanjia guard. After landing, he hurriedly went to the bed and touched Li Tai's pulse with his hand. He was about to flip his eyelids. Li Tai on the bed suddenly rolled over and murmured, "Senfuzi, Dan Qiushen, I'm about to drink." Don't stop drinking. The people in the hall suddenly became speechless. Is the king of Wei talking nonsense? In the dream, he drank with someone, but who is Cen Fuzi? Who is Dan Qiusheng? Changsun couldn't help but laugh and cry. Erlang and himself had an extremely dangerous time last night, while Izzy drank in his dream. He was only 7 years old, can he drink? Upon hearing this, the imperial physician was overjoyed. It was better to be able to babble than to be unconscious. He continued to flip Li Tai's eyelids and was about to speak, but Li Tai on the bed rolled over again, opened his eyes, and was already awake. After Li Tai got up from the bed, he looked at everyone in confusion and asked, "Where is this? Who brought me here? Are you a doctor? Are you washing my stomach?" Everyone was shocked. The doctor understood, but what does gastric lavage mean? King Wei, is this broken and suffering from amnesia? What everyone didn't know was that at this moment, Li Tai's original soul had dissipated in the fall on the bed, and now his soul is Li Qingque, who has traveled through later generations. Li Qingque, Xia Longren from Blue Star, and those in their late 20s finally got off the list after taking out the shameless tactics. In order to celebrate, they stayed up all night and drank 2 gin of Hai Baijiu alone in the house. They fell drunk in the early morning and died, leaving Blue Star. Li Qingque was also puzzled at this moment, why everyone in front of her was abnormal, dressed in ancient costumes. Is this filming an ancient costume drama? Well, just now I saw a beautiful woman who is particularly beautiful. Although she has armor all over her body and a dignified appearance, her eyes are filled with warmth. Would you like to exchange a message with her later? Qingque, do you still remember what happened last night? Said the elegant and luxurious beauty. Of course I remember. Last night, I got single and almost hit second base. Then I had a drink and had a long dream. But in the eyes of everyone, it was a secret way. It's over. The king of the guard has indeed been injured and has developed soul separation syndrome. He talks nonsense and is really powerful. What is Tua Dan? What is second base? As she spoke, Li Qingque also felt something was wrong. It was her own body that was not right. When she opened the blanket and looked at it, waves of buzzing echoed in her mind. Why did her body become so short? Did you get amputated? Poor oneself, in the prime of life, with parents at the top and siblings at the bottom, how can this be? Can I still be a teacher in the future? After being stunned for a while, tears streamed down, and everyone by the bed could no longer hear what they were saying. In just half a day, I didn't know that the servant of the Qin prince's mansion had leaked a sentence. Suddenly, the news of the Qin prince's second son being disturbed by the assassin and suffering from soul separation disease spread to the high-ranking officials and nobles in Chang'an. Although Changsun was worried about the symptoms of his beloved son, there were too many affairs in the mansion, so he let Li Tai's personal maid, Xiaoqin, take good care of him. Xiaoqin then took a bowl of congee, carefully dug out a spoonful, blew, and fed it to Li Tai's mouth. "Prince, you must be hungry. You need something to eat. I'll feed you." Li Tai mechanically opened his mouth, swallowed congee, and then asked, "Who are you?" "I'm Xiaoqin, I'm your maid. You can come to me for anything." With the little girl's chatter, Li Qingque reluctantly accepted the reality of crossing into a parallel world of blue stars. Forcefully comforting oneself. In the previous life, my parents believed that my younger siblings would be filial. Although my girlfriend was quite regretful, she hadn't reached second base yet. After a while, she probably forgot about herself. It's easy to say about past life events. But in this life, I went from being in my 30s to being 7 years old and accepted it, and was reborn in the imperial family. My father is Li Erdi, who has been known for thousands of years. It is not an exaggeration to call him the one emperor for thousands of years. My mother is the wise Empress Changsun. This is because the heavens gave me a royal family background because I did not live well in my previous life. But making oneself the king of Wei is really uncomfortable. Although the king of Wei in history had an extremely noble status, he was also a pitiful lord. He fought and fought with his brother for that chair, and ultimately died of depression or homicide. In short, at the age of 33, he completed the entire life journey, similar to his previous life. Are all those called Qingque short-lived ghosts like this in their past lives and in the Tang Dynasty? In the following days, with the careful care of Yaojin and Cheng, Li Tai's body slowly recovered after drinking a few bowls of traditional Chinese medicine. In fact, it is the fusion of the soul of the immortal Li Qingque and the body of the current king of Wei. I have been able to come to the study these past few days, but I have been thinking about how to live in the Tang Dynasty in the future. In my previous life, I lived a miserable life, but in this life, I have reached a very high starting point and don't have to struggle for life. Although Li Qingque was a short-lived ghost in history, can't he change it himself? Always live a wonderful life in this life. As he pondered, the door to the study opened and a man walked in with a dragon-like and tiger-like gait. The man is quite tall, dressed in purple clothes, with a white jade waist, a pair of bright eyes under his eyebrows, and a slightly curled beard at the corner of his mouth. His face is very handsome. Li Tai was stunned and looked at the man in purple in front of him, asking, "Are you me?" Under the guidance of Yaojin, I have basically learned how to address people from the Tang Dynasty in these days. The man in front of me dressed like this is the father of this generation, known as Li Erdi, who has been passed down for generations. The person who came was none other than Li Erdi. On the third day after the Xuanwu Gate incident, forced by Li Yuan's helplessness, he issued a decree appointing Li Erdi as the crown prince, and the court situation stabilized. At this moment, Li Erdi's domineering face appeared very warm, and he whispered, "Yes, I am Qingque. How do you feel now?" Looking at Li Tai in front of him, Li Erdi felt heartbroken. I'm doing pretty well now. I just had a long dream before," Li Tai replied immediately. "You should know that the lord in front of me is the future Emperor Li Erdi, who is a heavenly Khan. It all depends on Li Erdi's future life." Li Erdi looked at the objects Li Tai was painting on the paper and couldn't help but ask, "Qingque, what are you painting?" Oh, Li Tai was also at a loss for words. He had just subconsciously thought that the Turks were about to move south, and the Wei River alliance, which Li Erdi regarded as a lifelong shame, was about to occur. He had been a physics teacher in his previous life, so he casually drew some pictures. At this moment, Li Tai was still not used to using the brush, so he asked Yaojin to find some carbon and wrap it in a cloth to draw. After thinking for a moment, he said, "This is the iron thistle, this is the horseshoe, and this is the golden hoof. Iron thistle, this I has heard of it before. Is it made like this? And what are the horseshoes and hooves? Chapter 02. Qingque, do you have any grudges with Ma? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Erdi was indeed quite curious at this moment. You should know that there have been iron thistles since ancient times, but he had never heard of anything like horseshoes. Li Tai held the painting on the paper and said with some nervousness, "This is an iron thistle, you know." Li Erdi looked at it and nodded. There were 4 protruding iron spikes in the iron thistle. As long as it was thrown to the ground, one of the spikes would definitely face upwards, causing huge damage to the warhorse. But Li Tai then pointed to a picture and said, "This is called a hoof. Li Erdi couldn't help but be a bit shocked. This is a horse-killing weapon specifically designed for warhorses. The hoof in the picture is a square shape, but both the inner and outer rings are advantageous for stabbing and backbiting. As long as the warhorse steps on a corner, it is estimated that it will be scrapped on the spot." This made it difficult for Li Erdi to accept. After all, Li Erdi was a horse emperor who fought on the battlefield all his life and had a special affection for war horses. Li Erdi said slowly, "Qingque, do you have a grudge against Ma?" Why did you design such a malicious mechanism to deal with him? Li Tai couldn't help but be taken aback. Was this malicious? I haven't said anything more malicious yet. But on second thought, he understood Li Er's meaning and said, look at this, it's for protecting warhorses. Li Er looked and saw that the picture depicted a hollow iron ring in the middle, which could protect the warhorse. Li Tai said, this iron ring is a horseshoe, also known as a horseshoe iron. As long as it is nailed to the feet of a warhorse, it can effectively protect the hooves from wear and tear. Li Er immediately raised a question mark on his forehead and said, are you sure? There is also this method. Where did you come from? It should be noted that the main reason for the lack of war horses in the Tang Dynasty was the damage to their hooves. Whether in training or war, the hooves of war horses were severely worn, and often more than 30% of them had to retire from service after a major war. Upon hearing Li Er's question, Li Tai felt a little helpless and had to say, the child is not very clear either. It's just that when he was unconscious, it seemed like an old immortal had taught him some knowledge. The reason why I drew it today is because I have a feeling that the Turks are going south. The ancients still had a great reverence for immortals and ghosts. Some things were difficult to explain, so they pushed them towards the old immortals and used another technique to divert their attention. What, the Turks are going south? Are you sure? Sure enough, Li Erdi's face changed drastically upon hearing this, and he stood up from his seat, no longer delving into the origins of Li Tai's drawings. The most frustrating thing for Li Erdi these days is whether the Turks will go south and which route will they take. Nowadays, the military strength of Chang'an city is empty, with only 16 guards remaining. Before the Xuanwu Gate incident, the other armies guarding the capital were all transferred by Crown Prince Li Jianqing under various pretexts to avoid the Qin king's rise to power. Nowadays, there are armies in places such as Yuzhou, Cangzhou, and Qizhou, but they cannot quench their thirst from afar. Thinking of this, Li Er couldn't help but feel a deep hatred in his heart. Definitely, Just think about last year when the Turks suffered from a white disaster, where countless cattle, sheep, and horses froze to death. With the wild nature of the Turks, we will not consider any rest and development. But instead, they launched a war to plunder, and the great upheaval in Chang'an gave the Turks the best reason, Li Tai said in a positive tone. Of course, the Turks would go south, which is recorded in historical records. However, Li Tai cannot be said to have been recorded in later generations. He started with the white disaster and analyzed it from the wild nature of the Turks, striving to increase the persuasiveness of his words. You should know that the alliance of the Wei River in history has brought endless harm to the newly emerged Tang Dynasty. Although Li Erdi used tactics to force back the Turkic army, he also emptied the dynasty's assets. When the Turks returned to the army, they even took at least 30,000 young men and women from the Tang Dynasty as two-legged sheep. Li Erdi could only watch helplessly, but was powerless. For an invincible commander like Li Er, this is a lifelong shame. No wonder after the Turks withdrew, Li Er shouted the slogan of vowing to annihilate the Turks. But since he has traveled through time, Li Tai really doesn't want the Tang Dynasty to experience this hardship again, and doesn't want Li Er to bear shame again. As Li Er watched the little person in front of him chatter away, he couldn't help but feel a bit stunned. Is this still a 7-year-old child? Is this still my own little bird? Did you come up with this yourself? Li Er couldn't help but ask. Well, this is a discipline of the old immortal sect called Tui Yen Shu. Li Tai was also helpless and could only push it all towards the old immortal. Which route do you think the Turks will take? Li Er now had a hint of humbly seeking advice. Nonsense, Li Tai thought to himself. Of course I know, but I can't say that if I say it, I will be treated as a monster by you. How can I live in the Tang Dynasty in the future? The Turkic army and horses were numerous, but after the white disaster, their food and supplies were insufficient, so their attack route must be in areas with fertile water and grass, Li Tai could only say. Li Erdi fell into contemplation for a while, and after a while, Li Erdi said, "So the iron thistles and hooves you drew were used to fight against the Turkic cavalry." Li Erdi is an invincible commander, who conquered most of the Tang dynasty. When he entered the war mode, Li Erdi no longer thought about whether the objects designed by Li Tai had any grudges against the horses. There are only enemies on the battlefield, and it is possible to kill them using any method. Exactly, there is also the need to protect our own warhorses. If the enemy loses their warhorses, and our warhorses can be protected, the Turks' southward movement will become their nightmare, and they will not plunder the people of Tang dynasty. Li Tai expressed his thoughts. Good, good, good. Li Erdi chuckled and caressed his hands. He didn't expect to come over and see his beloved son, and there would be such a harvest. But then he asked again, "Are you sure that horseshoe is useful? Can you prevent the hooves from getting worn and injured?" "Aye, this can be made and tested right away." Li Tai was not too sure in his heart, and it was confirmed that it would not be affected by wear and tear. However, it was also unlikely that he could withstand the damage of the iron thistle, let alone the hooves. "Okay, come over to Yen Lide, the Minister of Works," Li Erdi shouted outside the door. In recent years, the Qin prince's mansion has been in continuous warfare, with various government offices and institutions, such as the Jian Shu Hall, the Good Doctor's Office, the Jian Shan Office, the Trial Office, the Worship Office, the Jian Bao Office, and the Gongjing Office. There are many extraordinary people and scholars, and there is no doubt that this is a small court, and it is also the confidence of Li Erdi's future leadership of the world. This Yen Lide is a great craftsman of the Gongjing Institute. In the Tang dynasty, although the status of craftsmen was not high, great craftsmen were still highly respected. Half an hour later, Yen Lide, the master craftsman of the Qin family, hurried over. During this period of time, Li Tai happened to have perfected the several blueprints at hand. Li Erdi saw Li Tai writing like a flying pen, just holding a horizontal beam to help him draw several blueprints in a short time with his carbon pen, and couldn't help but secretly marvel. After Yen Lide entered, he saw not only Li Erdi, but also the prince of the prince's mansion. He was also quite puzzled, wondering if he might have found the wrong person. "I heard that the Prince of Yaojin has suffered from exorcism, so he should seek medical attention from the imperial physician." Li Erdi didn't say much, just showed him the drawings drawn by Li Tai. When he saw the objects on the paper, not only were there frontal, 3-dimensional, and cross-sectional views, but also detailed dimensions were marked. Yen Lide couldn't help but be amazed. "How can you make it, master?" Li Erdi asked. "No problem, this object can definitely be created, but I don't know if it can achieve the expected effect. However, who drew these drawings? I hope to learn the drawing method of these drawings from a teacher." Chapter 03. Martial Arts Field Experiment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Upon hearing that Yen Lide was going to apprentice, Li Erdi felt a bit hesitant. He thought to himself, if you knew that the target of your apprenticeship was right in front of you, a 7-year-old child, would you still apprentice? Moreover, Li Tai is still young. Today, it seems that he is too early-witted and should not be exposed in front of others. In the future, he needs to be hidden. He has a head disease, which is the best reason. With this in mind, Li Erdi said, "Master, those who are apprentices are not busy beforehand. I only accidentally obtained these blueprints. You can go and create them first and try the effect." "Yes." Yen Lide saw Li Erdi's words being somewhat evasive, indicating that there was no hope of learning from him for the time being. He respectfully bowed and turned around before walking out. As he left, he sighed and said, "The drawing skills of this blueprint can be said to have been established by the founder and not easily passed on to others, which is normal. In the future, he can make some contributions and strive for it from the master." Li Tai was a bit stunned when he heard it. A simple geometric 3-dimensional drawing method that any junior high school student in later generations would know. how could it make Yen Li think of apprenticeship? Yen Li, as he knows, is the biological brother of the highly acclaimed painter Yen Liben in later generations. Both of these brothers are skilled in painting, and in addition, Yen Li has deep expertise in craftsmanship and architecture. After all, Li Tai has just returned to the Tang Dynasty, and I wonder how difficult it was for ancient people to acquire knowledge. Although paper was already available in the Tang Dynasty, the price was high and not affordable for ordinary people. In addition, printing technology was outdated, and the price of a book could reach tens of guan. Even people like Yen Li had to hesitate before purchasing a book. The next day, at the Qin Prince's mansion martial arts arena, a dozen or so horses were impaled on horseshoes and galloped back and forth in the sand field covered with sand, stones, iron materials, and broken wood. Li Erdi was sitting above the martial arts arena with Li Tai, just asking him not to speak. Upon hearing this, Li Tai just crooked his mouth. Now, in the eyes of outsiders, he was suffering from a head disease and it was right that he could not speak. At this moment, Yen Li was below the martial arts arena, commanding his soldiers to set up another scene. After practicing 2 incense sticks, the soldiers got off their horses sweating profusely and looked at the damage to the soles of the warhorses. They reported to Li Erdi, there were 15 experimental warhorses, and one of them was injured by a wooden thorn in the hoof, while the others were basically undamaged. 2 sticks of incense would take an hour, and Li Erdi nodded. This was enough for cavalry combat, and the environment set up on site was much more demanding than normal combat. It was normal to be injured by wooden spikes. In order to simulate a more realistic battlefield, Li Erdi ordered some strange hardwoods to be piled up inside. Some of the hardwoods were covered in thorns, and in this case, it was much beyond Li Erdi's expectations to only stab a warhorse. After all, horseshoe iron is mainly used to protect the hooves from wear and tear, and it is still unable to prevent wooden spikes. With this in mind, he whispered to Li Tai, "Your horseshoe can withstand the iron thistle and hooves you designed." Li Tai pursed his lips and said, "I don't think so, we can only reduce the damage." "What exactly is going on?" "We still need to experiment." In another testing ground, the ground was already covered with iron thistles and hooves. The Xuanjia army was riding on more than 20 slightly weak horses, half of which were nailed to horseshoes, while the other half were not. With a command from Li Erdi, the Xuanjia army swung their horses and ran in. Before running half a lap, the warhorse that had not been nailed to its hooves had already fallen in a pitiful rhythm. Although the warhorse with its hooves nailed to it was still advancing, its hooves were already scarred. Li Erdi felt heartbroken. During this period, it was extremely difficult to raise a warhorse, and the military families had to devote all their resources to supporting a warhorse. Although these horses were slightly weak, they could still be used for 2 or 3 years. Li Tai, on the other hand, was stunned. Although the objects on the martial arts arena were designed by himself, he did not expect them to have such great destructive power on warhorses. On the experimental field, blood-soaked, Li Tai was still a modern person in his heart. With such a brutal killing scene, he was deeply shocked and dizzy in his mind. He only took a few deep breaths, struggling to hold himself back from fainting. At this moment, the other half of the horses with horseshoes nailed on them finally ran through the entire field, but all the horses had already fallen to the ground, and the soldiers of the Xuanjia army were also thrown off their horses. Li Erdi could clearly see from the scene that the warhorse with horseshoe iron would be injured if it stepped on 1 or 2 iron thorns, but it could still run, but if it stepped on a few more, it would be unsustainable. And those who step on the hooves only need 1 or 2, and the warhorses will be seriously injured. The warhorses on site can run the entire field, relying entirely on the inertia and momentum of the warhorses, but in fact, they are already difficult to support halfway. Li Tai also estimated that within a circle of the Qin Prince's mansion, this martial arts arena is estimated to be 2 miles, which is 1,000 meters. Therefore, as long as the Turkic cavalry is covered with iron thorns and hooves on their way, it will inevitably hinder the Turkic southward movement. Li Tai saw that there was no one around and whispered to Li Erdi, as long as we make iron briars, after all, the Turkic cavalry doesn't have horseshoes yet. Let's not make horse hooves for now. This hoof was only found during the Northern Song dynasty, derived from the Wu Gang Zong Yao, written by Emperor Renzong of Song. At that time, the Northern Song dynasty was extremely short of horses and suffered from the bullying of the Liao and Xia dynasties in the north. At that time, the Song people did not care whether it was malicious or not, and could defeat the enemy with good weapons. Li Tai allowed this object to be born 300 years earlier, but the killing power of the hoof is really too great. After hearing what Li Tai said, Li Erdi laughed heartily and said, "This horseshoe is indeed a bit malicious, but everything has two sides. Qingque, remember that when used for good, these objects are beneficial to the country and the people, and when used for evil, they are poisonous for thousands of miles. It all depends on the user's true intention." This statement is reasonable. Although Li Tai has more than 1,000 years of knowledge than his cheap father, he also admits that Li Erdi has a considerable amount of knowledge and is worthy of being a figure that will be passed down for generations to come. As time passed, Li Tai could feel the atmosphere of the Qin prince's mansion becoming increasingly heavy. Li Erdi also held meetings in the mansion from time to time, indicating that he was going to deal with the Turks. Although Li Erdi now controls the court, as long as Li Yuan does not announce his abdication, Li Erdi will not be able to enter the Tai Chi palace and can only hold discussions at the Qin prince's mansion. After coming to the Tang dynasty for some time, Li Tai wanted to go out for a walk, but since that day at the martial arts arena, Li Erdi solemnly instructed him not to go out for the time being and to let him or his grandson know if he needed anything. Regarding the upcoming Turkic southward war, Li Tai felt powerless and couldn't just take out the black powder now. This thing is Pandora's magic box. Once opened, in the current environment where aristocratic families and ambitious families are rampant in the Tang dynasty, it is completely uncontrollable, even Li Erdi cannot. However, with his timely reminder and the use of weapons such as horseshoes and iron thistles, Li Erdi would not have been an invincible commander in history if he had continued to provide money, food, and people to make the Turks retreat, just like in history. Although the iron thistle and the horseshoe both harm the enemy, it is better for one's own warhorses to be protected by horseshoe iron. How to use them on the battlefield still depends on Li Erdi. Chapter 04. Is it okay to make some popsicles for sale? You are listening at novelfull.audio. I have already done what I need to do, let's leave the rest to others. Although the Tang dynasty is not calm now, there are countless strategists and generals. Li Tai felt happy and began to ponder about himself when he wanted to come here. How can one live longer in this life? Don't be fooled by the fact that my older brother Li Qingqian and I are now brothers and sisters, but as we grow older, we have to fight to the death for that chair. There is also the unborn little nine, and the thought of this little nine makes one shudder. This is a seemingly innocent but actually a dark-hearted master. It turns out that in history, he died in his 30s, and most likely he was the black hand of little nine. Ji Lu, the cicadas outside were making a lot of noise, and the sunlight was shining brightly, making people dizzy. At the end of July in Chang'an, the temperature was outrageously high. Li Tai estimated that the outdoor temperature was at least 37 degrees Celsius. Even if he hid in his study all day, it was extremely uncomfortable, which made Li Tai miss the air conditioning of later generations. But at this point, having an air conditioner is simply a fantasy. In ancient times, wealthy people used stored ice to cool their homes. Although the Qin prince's mansion had underground caves to store ice cubes, there were also many people in the mansion, and Li Tai could only receive 2 small pieces every day. It was said that others only had 1 small piece a day, but Changsun felt sorry for his head disease and added a small piece to take care of him alone. But these 2 small pieces of ice only melted in half an hour, making the study even hotter after melting. If only there were saltpeter, Li Tai couldn't help but murmur. After thinking for a moment, she called the maid Yaojin in and asked if she could buy some saltpeter to come back. However, she saw the little girl looking at him strangely, and suddenly remembered that the county king had a head disease. She smiled and said, "Prince, there is one in the nitrate mansion, but what do you want it for?" Is it in the mansion?" Li Tai couldn't help but wonder, what's the use of asking for saltpeter in the Qing prince's mansion? Yeah, those Taoists in the good doctor's office draw talismans and refine alchemy every day when they are not cured, so some saltpeter will be fixed in the mansion. Li Tai was overjoyed and patted his head. Wherever there were Taoist priests, there was alchemy, and an important ingredient in alchemy was saltpeter. He asked the little girl to ask the housekeeper for some, the more the better. After a moment, the little girl returned, carrying a cloth bag and several pounds of saltpeter. Originally, the butler in the mansion heard that it was requested by the king of Wei and dared not neglect it. He estimated that he had given enough portions and even told Yaojin that it was not enough to ask him again. Li Tai asked the little girl to prepare 2 pots, one big and one small, and the small one should be made of iron. As a result, the little girl found 2 unusually large pots, even the small ones were twice as big as future wash basins. Let the little girl fill the large wooden basin with half of the water, while the small iron basin is almost filled. The little girl is not very old, and her strength has not yet grown. The water well in the Wang mansion is also a bit far from her study, but these 2 pots of water make her feel tired and panting. Li Tai felt a slight sense of guilt, but his own strength was even weaker, barely able to hold an empty wooden basin, let alone fetch water with a wooden bucket. Let the little girl put the small wooden basin filled with water into the large one, then let the little girl sit and rest, and the rest can be operated by herself. I took a big spoon and dug half a spoonful into the cloth bag, estimated to weigh half a pound. I poured it into a large basin of water and dug again. When I felt that the amount was enough, I stopped. Nitrate has strong oxidizing properties and should not be directly touched, otherwise it may burn the skin. Therefore, Li Tai used a spoon to dig it at this time. The little girl sat on the chair, watching Li Tai fidget around, but there was no danger. She let out a sigh of relief. This master is now a key figure in the mansion, and if anything goes wrong, she probably won't be able to survive. Slowly, the little girl felt a hint of something unusual. The temperature inside the house had cooled down a bit. Then, as the temperature inside the house became colder and colder, the water on the small basin had almost melted into ice. Li Tai also felt much cooler at this moment, so he asked the little girl to get 2 bowls, fill them with half a bowl of water, add some sugar, and then use a clean spoon to dig out 2 pieces of ice on the ice, put them in the bowl, and smash them. I gave the little girl a bowl. Holding a bowl of ice cream, I sucked in it and it was so refreshing. It was so refreshing that I couldn't help but feel a bit like ice cream from later generations. Looking up and seeing the little girl standing dumbfounded, he said to her, "Eat, Ben. I rewarded you with this." Although he had been walking through for some time, he still didn't get used to claiming to be the king. The little girl quickly exclaimed, "Oh," picked up the bowl and drank, tears streaming down her face as she drank. The prince was really great, even sharing such a delicious rock sugar water with me, but she forgot that she was tired from making these ice before. A bowl was quickly finished, and looking at the little girl's face, he probably wanted to eat more. But Li Tai thought for a moment, he was too young, and eating too much might cause diarrhea. He told the little girl to eat again tomorrow, and he could eat it every day from now on, but he could only eat it once a day and not too much. The little girl was indeed very obedient, nodding. It was just that the room of the prince was so cool, and the little girl hesitated to go out. There was a lot of talk about Li Tai. He told Li Tai that the delicious dim sum in various shops in Chang'an City seemed to be greedy. It could be seen that she had never eaten anything, but she just remembered it. The little girl said, "Prince, if you sell this rock sugar water outside at this time, it will definitely sell for a good price." This statement really caught Li Tai's attention and asked the little girl, I have a monthly allowance now, right? How much does it cost? The little girl exaggeratedly said, of course there is. The prince's monthly allowance is 5 guan of money. Li Tai was surprised. In the early Tang Dynasty, grain prices were extremely cheap. He knew that 1 bushel of rice was only 3 or 4 won, and 5 guan coins could buy more than 1,200 bushels. Even if calculated based on 6 kilograms, 1 bushel of rice could weigh 7 or 8,000 kilograms. The grain yield of the Tang Dynasty was not high, only 2 stones per acre, which is about 150 kilograms. He received 5 acres of fertile land in a month, which made him feel like a moth. It's really a worm. I don't have to do anything and start earning a high salary, which makes me feel so miserable as I work hard and earn a meager salary in the future. But let it be as it is now. If you want to live longer in the future, you must avoid getting caught up in political whirlpools, and not even touch politics. But with your current position, it is not easy to achieve these things. As long as someone with a heart plants a stolen item and creates something out of nothing, they will be caught up in a huge vortex. So, one needs to have a self-protection force, which requires a lot of money. The little girl's words reminded him that this rock sugar actually doesn't need to be mixed with water. It just needs to be made into a popsicle, which is not easy to melt and is also easy to sell. Now, it's the end of July, which is a good season for sales. But I am too young and have just worn it, so I don't have anyone on hand. The little girl is too young to handle going out. How can she find a reliable person? Looking for cheap dad to come alone. Dad has too many talents on hand, but he can't. Doing this on his own can avoid the perspective of the people in the royal family. At this moment, someone outside shouted, is Qingque at home? I'm Qingque. Chapter 05. Technology Investment. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. When Li Taizheng was pondering to himself, he heard a shout outside and was immediately overjoyed. He really wanted to doze off and bump into a pillow. This Qingque, the eldest son of Cheng Yaojin, is known for his generosity, with a father-like demeanor. The little girl also mentioned that she had some relationship with the descendants of several generals under the Qin king before. It seems that she came to visit her. Cheng Yaojin was a notorious demon king in later generations, who had already been granted the title of Duke of Lu. He was a fierce general under Li's command and one of the main forces behind the Xuanwu Gate incident. Quickly opening the door and shouting outside, Brother Chumo, come to the study. Not one came in, but 2 teenagers, about 10 years old. They are said to be teenagers, but their physical development is excellent. At a young age, they already give the impression of having big arms and a round waist. Li Tai estimated that both of their arms are 2 or 3 times thicker than their own. One had a relatively fair skin color, while the other was incredibly black, no different from the people of Heizhou in later generations. The person with fair skin color is probably Qingque, but I don't know who the black carbon head is. After the 2 of them entered, they felt an extraordinary coolness in the room, but at the same time, they carefully examined Li Tai and noticed that he was a bit hairy. Just as he was about to ask, his fair complexion opened his mouth and said, Qingque, I heard that I was disturbed a few days ago and had a head disease. Are you feeling better now? Thank you, Brother Chumo, for your concern. I'm already doing well, but I can't remember some things from the past. Everything else is fine. Upon hearing this, the 2 couldn't help but be surprised. They didn't expect Li Tai's situation to be like this. Qingque continued, it's okay, Qingque. Take some things slowly, don't worry. This is Wei Baolin, the legitimate eldest son of the Duke of Yi. If you forget, just remember. Upon hearing Qingque's interesting words, Li Tai burst out laughing and asked the 2 of them to sit down and have the little girl go and fetch 2 more bowls. He had some ideas that he wanted to implement from these 2 people. Quickly, Li Tai asked the little girl to make 2 bowls of ice sugar water for the 2 of them to drink. The 2 of them happened to be sweating all over, and as soon as they took the bowl, they drank it all in one gulp. They suddenly felt that all 360 pores in their bodies were emitting cold air, which was really satisfying for him. 2 households also store ice cubes, but not all ice cubes are suitable for drinking. The ice cubes obtained from rivers and lakes in winter can only be used for cooling down. Only the ice cubes obtained from wells can be used for drinking, but in very small quantities. They are usually used in the government to entertain guests. The 2 of them finished drinking and stared at Li Tai with wide eyes, meaning they still wanted to drink. Li Tai looked at their constitutions and estimated that they should be fine after drinking 2 or 3 bowls, so he asked the little girl to make 2 more bowls. The 2 of them drank them all at once, and the little girl's speed in making rock sugar water couldn't keep up with their drinking speed. After drinking 3 bowls in a row, Li Tai said he couldn't drink too much as it would cause diarrhea. After the 4th bowl was served, the 2 began to savor it slowly. Li Tai also smiled and looked at their taste, saying, "How did it feel to drink?" "It's so cool, he's really good at it," the 2 of them said in unison. "Do you want to drink every day?" Li Tai immediately transformed into a wolf grandmother and earnestly seduced her. "Of course, it's just Qingque. There shouldn't be many ice cubes in the royal mansion, so if I can give you these, it's probably because the queen takes special care of you. Drinking them every day will make it difficult for the queen." The 2 of them are quite cultured and considerate. Li Tai walked into the basin at this moment, knocked down a large block of ice, and then knocked off some of the edges, roughly resembling popsicles from later generations. He then used a bowl to put it back in front of the 2 of them. Li Tai gestured with his hand and said, "Just insert a small wooden stick in the middle of this ice block, and you can eat it with your hand." The 2 nodded, not quite understanding what Li Tai was saying. Li Tai continued, "I made these ice cubes myself, not from my mother." The 2 of them were both surprised and a little surprised. They heard that Li Tai had a way to make ice cubes. The room was so cool that even the Qin prince's mansion couldn't afford it. Only by making it themselves could they explain it. As he began to understand Li Tai's meaning, Cheng immediately asked, "Qingque, what do you think? Just say it and see if it can be done." It should be noted that both of these are legitimate eldest sons. Although they are not very old, as long as it is not a big matter, they can often represent the family when speaking. Cheng's words indicate that they will be cautious when asked to speak directly by Li Tai. Upon hearing this, Li Tai muttered to himself that his speaking style was indeed very sophisticated. He explained in detail and finally said, "These popsicles can be placed in a wooden box and covered with a few layers of burlap, making them resistant to melting for 3 to 4 hours. After listening, the 2 of them said, "Qingque, what you mean is to find a storefront to sell, and also sell whole boxes to the salesperson, so they can go through the streets and alleys." This can be done. My family has a shop in Xingfang that hasn't been used much and can be taken out for use, Wei Baolin thought briefly and immediately said. Speaking of which, Yuqi Gong's family is all rough, and even the 2 wives in the mansion are not good at managing the house. Often, after Yuqi Gong has made military achievements, the shops rewarded by the royal family will not be managed, but will only be rented out to exchange for some money. Well, since that's the case, I also have a store in Xingningfang that I can use, Cheng thought for a moment and said. Upon hearing this, Li Tai knew that the matter had been resolved and said, "Well, both of these neighborhoods are high-ranking officials. As for the neighborhoods in the southeast and northwest directions, they can be sold by salespeople, which can also increase their income. What do you think is a suitable selling price for this popsicle?" First, let me explain that there is almost no cost to make it, and it mainly requires manual labor. Of course, it doesn't have much cost, it's just made from well water, and saltpeter can be reused. Just take the crystallized saltpeter out of the water and dry it in the sun before it can be reused. Well, let's just order one piece for 1 penny. As for those sold to salespeople, you can get 2 pieces for 1 penny. There are many big merchants in the northwest neighborhoods, and salespeople can sell even 2 cents for 1 piece. So, Qingque and Baolin, since it's a business, regardless of size, there must be a rule. I consider it as a technical investment. After deducting the costs of the store and labor from the sales revenue, how about the 3 of us sharing it equally? Li Tai said. Sure. Both of them nodded, feeling that they had taken advantage of Li Tai's advantage. It was because the store often had them, but ice-making methods were rare, so they readily agreed. Qingque, there are some things that are difficult to handle in the Wang mansion. I will draw a few blueprints later and write down the production method for you. You can take them back and have the craftsmen in the mansion make them, and strive to open the store as soon as possible. During this period of hot weather, even the dogs have stuck out their tongues, which is a good time to sell. The 2 of them were overjoyed. It seemed that Li Tai had great trust in them and entrusted all the subsequent affairs to them. How could they not be pleased? And with this technology, it can be sold every year, and once done well, it's a business. The 3 of them muttered to each other for a while, and then Li Tai gave the 2 of them several blueprints, and they immediately bid farewell. 2 days later, 2 shops called Summer Taishuanxin opened simultaneously in Enxingfang and Xingningfang. At first, everyone didn't know what to sell, until the staff in the store held some small bowls filled with ice cubes and sugar water for passers-by to drink for free, and there were also hundreds of ice popsicles distributed for free. After drinking, passers-by all say it's good, it's like a refreshing breeze in the scorching summer, and the popsicle can be slowly sucked and eaten, which is more in line with the taste of some people. Some peddlers are also fortunate enough to receive free popsicles and slowly eat them in the crowd, naturally having some thoughts in their hearts. It has already entered August, and the weather is still extremely hot. Ice popsicles have become popular throughout Chang'an City. Of course, people from Anqing and Xingning can also make plans to go to shops and drink ice sugar water. As the general of the Qin prince's mansion, Yaojin's eyebrows have furrowed slightly these days. However, as soon as he returns to the mansion, his wife will present 2 bowls of ice sugar water, which are both refreshing and sweet, making Yaojin give a thumbs up and praise his wife for her thoughtfulness. After finishing the ice sugar water today, Yaojin said to his wife, "Madam, you should take Chu Liang and a few others back to Qingque to see your mother's family these days. Come back when you have news at the end of the month." Madam Cheng was taken aback and asked, in such a crisis, should Qingque also leave? Qingque won't leave. After all, he has an official position and is receiving the imperial salary, so he must be loyal to the court. Yaojin said, gathering his beard and wiping away the water stains from the corners of his mouth. Chapter 06. Yaojin's Random Mixing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Madam, have 2 more bowls. I want to have a good drink today, Yaojin said with a wide grin. However, it's not advisable to drink too much. Drinking too much can cause diarrhea, Mrs. Cheng said. Who said that? I've had so much to drink and there's nothing wrong with it, Yaojin glared with a pair of bull eyes, looking displeased. Qingque said it. Mrs. Cheng covered her mouth and thought to herself, that's it. I've betrayed my son, and I've forgotten all my son's advice. I can't let my father know. Sure enough, Yaojin felt something unusual upon hearing this and said directly, Madam, to be honest, what did Qingque do during this time? Did he make this rock sugar water? Oh, I slipped my tongue. I hope Qingque doesn't blame me. Madam Cheng said helplessly, exactly, this rock sugar water is jointly operated by Qingque and the Baolin of the Wei family, as well as the Wei Wang of the Qin prince's mansion. In addition to the rock sugar water, there is also a type called popsicle. You can try it too. Yaojin took the popsicle and bit it. With a click, the popsicle shattered halfway. Kachi, Kachi, Cheng Yaojin took a few bites, then swallowed it and threw the remaining small wooden stick on the table, feeling a wave of comfort all over. He asked, "Madam, what do you mean by Chu Mo, Baolin, and Wei Wang doing business together? Let's hear more about it." Madam Cheng was helpless and explained the whole story in detail before finally saying, "Husband, don't look at the price of this item for a penny, but the cost is small and the profit is large. This is only a few days, and it is estimated that we have already earned nearly 1,000 guan." Cheng Yaojin was surprised and said, 1,000 guan of money, that's quite a lot. Even my own salary is not as high, and it's not just about giving money, but about having half of the money and half of the grain. In fact, after years of war and chaos in the early Tang Dynasty, the people were in poverty, and the country was also a poor group, unable to give out too much money. At first, I was a bit puzzled, but when I heard it, I burst out laughing and said, "Qingque has great talent. Let Chu Mo get along with him well in the future, and you will know the specifics later. As for this business, we need to continue and expand it, so that people can see that our Qing mansion remains calm and supports the crown prince. This thing can be done with manpower, but the government is running out of staff and the servants are working overtime. It's okay, madam. The harvest in the field has already passed. Just call some veteran soldiers over and let Chumo that kid reward them with some money. There are also shops, opening only 2 is far from enough. For Chang'an 108 Fang, at least 20 should be opened. The rest should be given to local merchants, and they should not lose their livelihood," Cheng Yaojin said. Upon hearing this, Lady Cheng's heart suddenly fell heavily. Her sons were all afraid of Cheng Yaojin and wanted to keep anything from him. Unexpectedly, her husband agreed and continued to do it with great fanfare. "In that case, I finally have an explanation for my son and won't be blamed by him anymore. Just filled with confusion in my eyes, why is my husband so supportive this time?" Seeing his wife looking at him suspiciously, Cheng Yaojin said, "We can't talk about court affairs, but as long as you know, the risk this time is not high. Although we are few people, we have a big weapon. Although there are 300,000 Turks, we can probably beat them up." Ha ha ha. Madam Cheng felt at ease upon hearing this. It was a rule that court affairs should not be told to women at home, but as long as she listened to her husband's tone, she knew that the problem was not serious. She only wanted to return to Qinghe just in case. She didn't even see if he had left his eldest son behind, which showed that she had at least 80% confidence. The little girl has also specifically gone to the store selling rock sugar water and popsicles these days. She saw a large crowd of people, and the salesperson was also buying boxes of goods, so she was very happy. After returning, he explained it to Li Tai in detail. Upon hearing the booming scene of selling rock sugar water and popsicles, Li Tai was also thinking happily about how much money could be divided at the end of the month. When Ching Chumo and Wei Chi Baolin came to his door again, Li Tai thought something unexpected had happened, but he didn't expect the two of them to come in with a happy expression. They said that the business of ice sugar water and popsicles had received strong support from their elders, and when they wanted to expand to 20 stores throughout the city, they were surprised because this business could only last until September. After October, the weather will cool down and probably there won't be many people eating. Expanding to 20 stores is unnecessary. But looking at the two of them sticking to the old man's approach at home, for them, the old man is the head of the house, even if it's heaven, Li Tai can't help but think it's okay. At most, it's okay to waste a little bit of the store's rent. It's still enough to use these 2 months of income to offset the rent. Unable to figure out the thoughts of the leaders of the Cheng and Wei Chi families, Li Tai couldn't help feeling a bit frustrated. In his past life, he was just a teacher and couldn't figure out the thoughts of these upper-class figures. Li Tai knew that this was his weakness, and in history, Li Tai couldn't recognize the situation clearly. Now, he is even more uncomfortable with these things. However, I am also somewhat unwilling. The expansion of 20 stores is clearly going beyond the marginal benefits. The rental prices in Chang'an City are not cheap, and it is difficult to say how much money can still be earned after being tossed and turned by the two old men. That is to say, most of the small money may have flown away. Is there any way to continue increasing income? It's getting cold, what does Chang'an City need? My heart trembled slightly, and the answer was very simple. Currently, there is no air conditioning in Chang'an City in summer, and there is naturally no heating in winter. I can only use firewood and charcoal stoves for winter. Rich and wealthy families are fine, they can use charcoal for heating, but charcoal is expensive and cannot be used by poor families. Even firewood can only be burned in the coldest days. The firewood that is usually harvested from the mountains not only needs to be used for cooking and water, but also needs to be exchanged for some financial goods. And the root cause of the problem is not knowing how to use coal. It is not possible to directly use coal for heating indoors in winter because incomplete combustion of coal produces carbon monoxide and there is insufficient ventilation in the house. Historical records have shown that every year in Chang'an City, countless people die from burning coal for heating. I asked the little girl, "Do you know about charcoal and coal poisoning?" As soon as I asked, the little girl burst into tears and said, "Lord, my family has been poisoned by coal, and we are all gone." I was the only one who managed to survive and was fortunate enough to be taken in by the royal family. This cry made Li Tai cry deeply, comforting her in a low voice. The little girl slowly stopped her tears, and her eyes were still red. In recent days, the atmosphere in the Qing prince's mansion has clearly become much heavier. Li Tai pays his respects to Changsun every morning and also feels his unease. Calculating the date, the Turks have already moved south, and a major war is imminent or small-scale battles have already erupted. Li Tai remembers that during the Wei River alliance, the Turks set off from Jingzhou, now Jingchuan, Gansu, after gathering, passed through Binzhou, now Binxian, Shaanxi, and after passing through martial arts, fiercely attacked Chang'an City. Looking at Changsun with a slight frown, he thought for a moment and thought that he could still do something. After waiting for his elder brother Li Qingque and others to leave, he said to Changsun, "Mother, I have a method that can greatly reduce the mortality rate of our wounded soldiers." "What?" Changsun was taken aback and saw Li Tai hesitating to leave. He might have something to say to himself, but he didn't expect to say such a shocking thing to himself. You should know that Changsun accompanied Li Erdi all the way, not proficient in military, but also familiar with it. Naturally, he knew that the number of soldiers who died after being injured on the battlefield often exceeded that of those who died on the spot, even several times. Chapter 07. Extracting Alcohol. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Thinking of this, Changsun said, "Qingque, speak carefully and think carefully before speaking." There is also a reason why Changsun said this, because last time his son suffered from a head disease, his husband went to visit him and heard that he also took him to the martial arts arena. After returning, he said to Changsun, "Although Qingque has a head disease, he is my Qilin. Mother consort, most of the wounded on the battlefield are from external injuries such as knife and gun injuries and arrow injuries, and the main reason for death is that the wound is infected, ultimately leading to the lack of medical treatment." What is a wound infection? Changsun became a bit serious. It should be noted that during the Sui and Tang dynasties, there were too many soldiers who suffered casualties during the continuous wars. The current population is not even half of that of the peak of the Sui dynasty. If we can effectively reduce the casualty rate, it can be said that we have made great contributions to the Tang dynasty. Mother, the wound infection is mainly caused by some stolen items on the knives, guns, and arrows, such as rust and toxins. Our Tang army treasures the combat equipment very much, often maintaining it and wiping it with lard, but the Turkic people do not have this habit. They even intentionally soak the knives, guns, and arrows in the cesspool before the battle, in order to make our soldiers on the battlefield infected and expand casualties. Well, Changsun doesn't quite understand why the Turks just put their swordsmen in the cesspit. Do you have medicine? Changsun said solemnly. Not yet, but it can prevent infection, mainly using alcohol. In addition, a set of disinfection rules and regulations should be established to greatly reduce casualties. Oh, it's so simple. Just what is alcohol? Asked Changsun Jue. Alcohol is a type of alcohol that can be purified and raised to over 75 degrees Celsius for daily consumption, which can greatly reduce wound infections. Just purify the wine and you can do it, murmured Changsun. Yes, mother, the alcohol content we are drinking now is too low, only over 20 degrees, and it needs to be purified several times before it can be consumed. Okay, you can go ahead and make it. If you need any expenses, you can withdraw them from the mansion. Also, let the craftsmen from the workshop cooperate with you. If you have any needs, you can ask Xiao Yuan or the Empress Dowager to help you, but be careful of safety. Changsun also thought about it. Anyway, the solution to the problem doesn't sound difficult. It doesn't matter if you fail, but if you succeed, it can actually be a great help to your husband. After Li Tai took command, he also gave a slight bitter smile in his heart, indicating that he was getting deeper and deeper into this war. If there were glass, purification would be more uniform, but not now. Although it is easy to make, time is tight, and it can also be achieved with a simple alcohol purifier. Moreover, glass may still be of great use in the future, so there is no need to make unnecessary mistakes. Returning to the study, I drew a simple alcohol purifier. The reason why this purifier is simple is that it looks like a slender cylinder, made of iron sheets, with one end open and the other end closed. However, Li Tai indicated the size. Ask the little girl to take it to the craftsman's workshop and have the craftsman make it as soon as possible. At the same time, ask the butler from the mansion to order 5 jars of rice wine. The pictures drawn by Li Tai are the favorite of the craftsman in the workshop. It is said that Yan Dazhang recently obtained a set of pictures, which was kept secret. He couldn't win the treasure and easily refused to let people see it. But now the drawings sent by the little girl are also a set, including the overall, detailed, 3-dimensional, and cross-sectional drawings. It is clear at a glance that they come from the same company, which immediately ignited passion and created them at the fastest speed. When Master Yen heard that he wanted to confiscate the blueprint, it was already in the hands of several leaders, and it was impossible to confiscate it. After all, public anger is hard to offend, but he also carefully instructed everyone that this is a secret of the royal family and must not be leaked. Spreading it will cause trouble. The craftsmen were all sensible and nodded together. I sent the drawings in the morning, and they were made in the afternoon. Li Tai nodded. It seems that the craftsmen's work efficiency is very high. I will talk to I later and give them more bonuses at the end of the year. In a warehouse, Li Tai was commanding several soldiers to pour rice wine into a filter, filtering out the residue and sediment in the rice wine, then pouring it into an alcohol purifier, and then sealing the opening. Next, place the alcohol purifier into a basin filled with water and have everyone warm the water in the basin to accelerate the evaporation and collection of alcohol in the purifier. After a busy afternoon, 5 jars of liquor were refined to produce a little over 1. It seems that the alcohol content of Tang Dynasty rice wine was not too high. Even if the butler brought it, it was the highest alcohol content of Sanlijiang, but it was estimated to be less than 25 degrees. The above methods may not be correct, perhaps there may be some fermentation needed, but the plot of the novel needs to be omitted, so scholars do not need to delve deeper. At night, Li Tai handed the prepared alcohol and the written regulations on the care of battlefield injured soldiers to Changsun. Changsun curiously poured out a little bit of alcohol and asked Li Tai, "Qingque, this is what you mean by 75-degree wine, may I drink it?" This is mainly used to treat the injured, and it can be consumed at a slight level, but only a small sip. Don't take a big sip. Sigh, it's best not to drink it. Well, only drunkards would take a big sip. Changsun slightly curled the corner of his mouth, picked up the cup, and pursed it a little. Suddenly, he felt a strong fire entering his stomach, as if it was about to explode, and his face turned red in an instant. Cough cough, Qingque, this is no longer wine, it's fire. Cough a few more times, drank a glass of water, and slowly calmed down. Li Tai is speechless. They say it's best not to drink, but you still want to drink. They say curiosity kills cats, but in fact, women's curiosity is even greater than cats. How to use it? Changsun asked after calming down. Li Tai explained in detail that as long as he applied it to the affected area, endured the pain, and bandaged it with medicine, he could prevent infection. Changsun couldn't help but be a bit skeptical. But thinking of the urgency of the military situation, he ordered this jar of alcohol to be sent to the front line. In fact, Changsun did not know where the king of Qin was now, but the Xuanjia army in the mansion knew it. After receiving the order, the Xuanjia army dared not neglect and formed a small team. They set off overnight and arrived at Wugong County by dawn. They saw that the military camps were everywhere, with horns and battalions. The scene was extremely solemn, and the investigation was even more rigorous. If it weren't for the Xuanjia army, Li Er's personal guard, and having a token, the Xuanjia army who came to deliver the message would probably have had to spend some time talking to Li Er. The Xuanjia army waited outside for the Qin king to receive them and respectfully handed over the wine jar, as well as the regulations on the care of battlefield injured soldiers. It was said that they were sent under the order of Changsun, and they were greatly surprised to hear the soldiers recount Changsun's words. Is this alcohol? Also sent to the military. Guanyin maid never engages in politics, let alone interfering in military affairs. Why did she make an exception this time? It should be noted that drinking alcohol is strictly prohibited in the military, and those who violate it will be punished with a cane, while those who violate it will be beheaded. The Tang Army's 12 laws and 36 punishments are not a joke. Is it effective to just listen to the words spoken by the sergeant and let him try it out on wounded soldiers in the military camp? This is alcohol used to prevent wound infections, not alcohol, it is not illegal. Looking at the regulations on the care of battlefield injured soldiers, again, I saw that it read. 1. Do not drink raw water, drink boiled water. 2. The wounded soldiers on the battlefield are concentrated in one place and should be separated from the soldiers on the battlefield to prevent infection. 3. The burlap used for bandaging must be placed in boiling water for at least a cup of tea before it can be used. 4. The feces and urine of wounded soldiers on the battlefield must be cleaned up on the same day, concentrated, and buried uniformly. There are still a dozen or so items in the forest below, and Li Er thinks that although it may be a bit cumbersome to do, it is not difficult to achieve. The usage of alcohol is also specified, especially indicating that it is not for drinking. Chapter 08. Martial Arts Battle Still Proud. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Er was quite interested. Although it was alcohol and specifically stated that it was not intended for drinking, since it was extracted from alcohol, it must also be drinkable, so he asked. Has anyone in the mansion ever drunk it? I heard that the queen drank a little bit, it was extremely spicy. The queen said it was really not human to drink, the soldiers of the Xuanjia army replied truthfully. Li Er laughed heartily and poured out some, less than half a liang. He took a big gulp and drank it down. Suddenly, thunder and earth caught fire, and his whole body was about to explode. Cough cough cough, what kind of wine is this? It's really what he's aiming for. It's too spicy. At this moment, the wise and powerful Li Er couldn't help but burst into a foul mouthful and quickly drank water. The strongest alcohol in the Tang Dynasty is only Sanle Jiang, which is in its 20s. It's okay to drink 3 liang at a time, but the one you're drinking is medical alcohol, and the two are completely different. It's just that these two couples are miraculously similar, they have to practice and give it a try to feel at ease. If Li Tai found out, he could only sigh and say, it's not like a family doesn't enter every door. According to historical records, in the middle and late August of the 9th year of Wuda, the Turkic army and the army temporarily gathered by the Tang dynasty faced off at the Wei River. In the end, Li Erdi used the strategy of suspected soldiers to have Cheng Yaojin, Wei Qi, and others lead elite troops to set up a suspicious formation in the rear of the Turks. Finally, after being extorted countless amounts of money, food, and cloth by the Turks agreed to withdraw. What's even more unforgivable is that they abducted countless young men and women during the withdrawal process. What Li Tai didn't know was that with his reminders and efforts, history had undergone some slight changes. The Turks were constantly attacked by the Tang army on their way south, especially the iron thistles and hooves, which caused huge damage to the Turkic army. The Turks never lacked horses, even though they suffered from a white disaster last year. However, the 300,000-strong army gathered at this time still fought according to the configuration of 1 person and 3 horses, and with the addition of horses transporting grain, there were over 1 million horses in the Turkic army. Just being chased and blocked all the way, after arriving in Wugong County, more than half of the warhorses had already been lost, and there was a shortage of food and supplies. At this time, the Tang army was blocked in Wugong County, and seeing the Tang army's solemn appearance, they all turned pale. The Turkic leader Jeli Khan was even more anxious. The purpose of this deployment was to take advantage of the unstable situation in the Tang dynasty, rob the Tang dynasty, ease the tense situation of Turkic money and food supplies, and enhance his own credibility. It was originally a win-win situation, but at this time, the battlefield was constantly hindered. The Tang army used a new hidden weapon to deal with warhorses, which was extremely vicious and severely damaged. In addition, with 300,000 soldiers eating horses and not enough food, they ordered the soldiers to launch a dense attack. However, the Tang army's use of hidden weapons against war horses also increased, giving the Turkic army a feeling of being deeply mired in the quagmire. Retreat is not possible, not only related to the dignity of the Khan, but more importantly, there is a shortage of food and supplies. We must not retreat hungry. When the Tang army continues to pursue, the army will be in danger. So after the confrontation between the Turkic army and the Tang army in Wugong County, they began to attack regardless of casualties, causing some casualties in the Tang army. Li Erdi handed over the jar of alcohol to the logistics manager Li Daozong and asked him to hand it over to the military doctor, as well as the wounded care manual, for them to carefully read and test its effectiveness. 2 days later, Li Daozong came to look for Li Erdi and said, "Your Highness, does that alcohol still exist?" After being used by military doctors, this substance is extremely effective. The deaths of wounded soldiers are reduced at a visible rate, and it is estimated that it can be reduced by at least 30%. Li Erdi was also somewhat surprised when he heard this. It was because it was sent by Changsun that he let the military try it out, but he didn't expect to receive a miraculous effect. He asked, "Did you really reduce the mortality rate by 30%? Well, yes, I have personally checked and found that this data is only low and not high. The post-war statistics should still be higher. It's just that there are too many wounded, that." Li Daozong spread his hand and said. "The alcohol is almost used up and has bottomed out," Li Daozong said awkwardly. In fact, military doctors have already reported it, but he needs to see the specific effects and some data before he can mention it to Li Erdi. Upon hearing this, Li Erdi fell silent and pondered. It should be noted that he was in the military at this moment, and there were no jokes in the military. Every word he said was responsible. And Li Daozong is Li Erdi's cousin, with great talent and a cautious personality. Otherwise, he would not have been appointed as the logistics manager. Li Erdi estimated that from martial arts to Chang'an, it would take almost a day to go back and forth, and with the addition of alcohol production, if it were sent back in 2 days, the battle would probably be over. Li Erdi expressed his doubts and said, "Daoist sect, I miscalculated a bit this time. I didn't expect this alcohol to be so useful, but if we want it to be brought over from the government, the wounded will have to be placed on site. How about that?" "Sure," said Li Daozong without hesitation. Compared to human life, on-site placement is just a small matter. Li Erdi waved his hand and asked the Xuanjia army to deliver the message. When the Xuanjia army arrived in Chang'an, it was already late at night and the city of Chang'an was under curfew. However, now it was wartime, and the Xuanjia army was the personal guard of the king of Qin. Coming to deliver orders at this moment would not be hindered. A few minutes later, Chang Sun was awakened from his deep sleep and read the military order. Urgent need for a large amount of alcohol, the more the better. I couldn't help but smile bitterly in my heart. This alcohol was made by Qingque and taken for trial. I didn't expect the military order to be so urgent and require a large amount. How can I handle it? The usage effect is probably quite good. Thinking that the alcohol was spilled by Qingque, she quickly asked Yuanyang to fetch Qingque. Li Tai was awakened in the middle of the night, and upon hearing the call of his mother's consort, he dared not neglect it. After hearing that Empress Dowager said she needed alcohol, she smiled and said, "Empress Dowager, I have already produced dozens of jars of this alcohol. If it is not needed on the battlefield, I still have others to use. If it is urgently needed on the battlefield now, let's move all of it." Upon hearing this, Chang Sun was both surprised and delighted. Before he could ask Li Tai what else he could use with so much alcohol, he immediately organized his men to send dozens of jars of alcohol to the battlefield overnight. On August 19, the 9th year of the Wuda reign, Wugong County had become a huge battlefield, with the battlefield spread out on all sides. It seemed that the Turks were in a hurry and wanted to finish their work in one battle. In the front of the Turkic army, soldiers holding simple wooden hooks constantly lifted the iron thistles and hooves on the ground, but these things seemed to be nailed to the ground, making it extremely difficult to lift them. Moreover, once they reached the range of the Tang army's bows and arrows, the rain of Tang army arrows would cover them. But at this moment, the Turks had been pushed to a desperate situation, and they had heard that there was a shortage of food and supplies in the army. It was also impossible to escape back, relying on the large number of people and the strength of the masses. At this moment, they were also charging forward in the rain of arrows. The rule in the Turkic army is that soldiers would rather die on their own than run away. If you die in battle, your tribe may still receive protection from Jeli and can develop steadily. However, if you flee without fighting, it will be a shame for the entire clan. Not only can they not survive on the grassland themselves, but the tribe will also be seen as cowards on the grassland, abandoned by the Jeli Khan, and without the protection of the Jeli Khan, the tribe will be devoured and annexed by larger tribes at any time. But the Tang army's iron thistles, hooves, and arrow rain formed a dense and airtight attack network, and the Turkic army also suffered unbearably. From dawn to dusk, both sides temporarily stopped fighting, and at this time, Li Erdi ordered people to start large-scale deployment of iron thistles and hooves. Chapter 09. The Arrival of Fighters. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. For Li Erdi, this battle was a defensive counterattack, as the Turks came from a long distance and lacked food and supplies. He only needed to hold on. In history, Li Erdi was not only skilled in offense, but also extremely skilled in defense. At that time, King Li Erdi of Qin was stationed at Hulao Pass, waiting for work and breaking down the two major local warlords Wang Shichong and Dou Jianda one by one, laying the foundation for the 300 years of the Tang Dynasty. In the military tent, Li Erdi was listening to the opinions of the soldiers on today's battlefield. Cheng Yaojin laughed heartily and said, "This battle was really enjoyable. At least 60 or 70,000 Turkic barbarians were killed. Let's see how many more soldiers they can gather to kill them." Another general, Niu Jinda, said, "However, our army has also suffered many casualties." Everyone was stunned. Since ancient times, the Turkic people have been skilled in archery and horsemanship, and their horse skills were superior to those of the Tang army. However, the Tang army was well equipped, especially with iron briars and hooves, which allowed them to kill the enemy in large numbers with minimal casualties. But Li Daozong said, it doesn't matter. Our army has secret wound infection prevention drugs, and the number of casualties in this battle can be reduced to at least 30% or more on weekdays, or even more than half, which is unknown. Because it was alcohol, I was worried that saying it would make people have bad associations, so I said it was a secret medicine. However, after saying so, it made all the generals in the tent excited and asked, "Prince of Jiangxia, is this statement true?" Of course, I was originally worried about the lack of secret medicines, but today at noon, a large quantity was sent from the Qin prince's mansion, enough to be used until the end of the war. After speaking, he nodded slightly towards Li Erdi, indicating that what he said was true, but all day today, the king of Qin was fighting on the front line and had no time to report. Li Erdi was instantly overjoyed and secretly praised Changsun as a virtuous assistant. It was feared that before the Xuanjia soldiers arrived at the mansion, the Qin prince's mansion had already produced a large amount of alcohol, constantly preparing to transport it to the front line. The generals received a positive response from Li Daozong, but they were also extremely pleased. Everyone in the tent crawled out of the pile of dead people. How could they not know that the most serious reduction in personnel on the battlefield was in the wounded camp? Often, after a major war, the loss rate of wounded soldiers in a battalion can reach over 70%. It is extremely regrettable that the loss rate is too high. These veterans who have experienced the battlefield can enter the elite army as long as they can survive. At present, although the Tang army is a temporary assembled army, it has weapons such as horseshoes, iron thistles, and hooves to protect the people and defend. Now, it has been heard that there are secret medicines for healing, and the soldiers have even greater courage to charge. Yu Qigong, with a face as black as charcoal, said to Li Erdi, "This secret medicine is excellent, but I don't know who invented it. It should be rewarded heavily." Yu Qigong has a strong martial arts ability, but he comes from a blacksmith background. When he was young, he sought to learn from his master, but was repeatedly rejected. Even now, he is still a rough man, but his value for knowledge is still above that of the others in his account. Li Erdi nodded and said, "The person who invented this secret medicine is an outsider, a guest in our mansion. He just doesn't like socializing with people. After the war, I will reward him." To be honest, Li Erdi doesn't know who invented it, because it was sent by the person appointed by Changsun, but there is a vague speculation in his heart. Li Erdi looked at Li Jing and Li Ji, gesturing for them to share their thoughts. These two were the idols of the Tang army, especially Li Jing, who was hailed as a military god. Li Jing thought for a moment and said, "Your Highness, although this battle was a great victory, due to the significant reduction in personnel of the Turkic army and the severe casualties of the war horses, the dead horses can be used as rations. With each reduction and increase, the food and forage problem for the Turkic people has been temporarily solved. It is estimated that this war will continue for a few more days." Li Erdi and the others were all surprised, and indeed, the problem of insufficient food and forage in the Turks was alleviated by the losses caused by the war. Li Erdi asked slowly, "What does Duke Wei think should be done at this time?" Li Jing said, "It's just a defensive counterattack. Although the chances of victory are great, it will also lead to prolonged warfare. If the Turks are determined to launch small groups of troops into the surrounding areas, it will cause huge damage to nearby villagers. I thought that when the battlefield situation was suitable, I could take the initiative to attack and lead the elite soldiers of the 16 guards to rush in. I must make sure that Jia Li's chicken stealing did not result in a loss of rice." Li Erdi asked the crowd, "What do you think?" To be honest, Li Jing's move was a bit risky. At this time, there were only 80,000 soldiers in the 16 guards. Excluding the 20,000 left behind in Chang'an, there were only 60,000 elite troops on the front line, while the other 50,000 were temporarily assembled. Although Jia Li suffered a major defeat today, he still had 200,000 troops. But the bravery of the Tang dynasty is reflected here. Li Jing's words fell, and most of the generals in the tent listened but expressed agreement. When Tang fought against external enemies, it was never based on a large number of people, and winning with less was the norm. Qingque listened, but his big mouth grinned, revealing a hazy white tooth. "It's possible, Your Highness. I'm really unhappy watching those little brats sway around in front of me today, and I can't rush out to fight yet." Everyone laughed heartily upon hearing this. Qingque and Qingque were both known as the two great generals under Li's command, especially Qingque, who was getting older and had a sharp decline in combat power, making it even more apparent that this battle was unparalleled on the battlefield. Everyone had already decided, but at this moment, they heard a commotion outside the tent. After receiving permission, the messenger came in and reported, the enemy soldiers seemed to have engaged in a camp war. Everyone was greatly surprised when they heard this. It seemed that the Turks were about to be defeated, and this was an extremely favorable opportunity for an attack. Shao is like soldiers sleeping in the middle of the night, somewhat like a sleepwalking state. After waking up from sleep, they thought they were still on the battlefield and indiscriminately attacked and killed those around them. Others fought back to protect themselves. But due to the uncertainty of who is sleepwalking, everyone has the possibility of quickly killing each other, and even taking advantage of the opportunity to kill each other when there are usually grudges and grievances. Shao was considered unknown in ancient times and its consequences were extremely serious, even causing the collapse of tens of thousands of troops. But after hearing this, Li Erdi's face was somewhat uncertain. As everyone looked at it, they suddenly understood with a bitter smile. Li Ji asked, "Your Highness, did you have covered the Turkic attack route with iron thistles and hooves again before?" Li Erdi nodded, also feeling a bit depressed. He aimed at Shao, even after 10 years of fighting, he may not encounter it once, and he himself does not have the ability to predict. Everyone couldn't help but sigh, an excellent opportunity was lost. While sealing off the enemy, they also sealed themselves. Now it's dark at night and the wind is high. How can we attack? But Li Daozong said, "No, Your Highness, we can still fight for it. Last time, we built tens of thousands of scattered iron thistles and hooves according to your blueprint, which were mainly placed on the border before. But the drawings also indicate that in our Tang territory, it is best not to arrange scattered iron thistles and hooves. Dozens of them can be strung on a single iron wire, and when used, they only need to be forcefully hammered into the ground at both ends, making it difficult to be picked up. However, collecting them afterwards is extremely simple, with specialized tools to lift both ends and recycle them, so as not to cause harm to the people." After the war everyone was overjoyed, but Li Erdi knew about the gameplay of the iron tribulus and the iron hoof, but when he focused on the war, he ignored it. "Are you using this type of serial connection now? How long will it take to open the channel?" they asked in unison. Li Daozong said, "Yes, this is martial arts, which is already the core area of our Tang dynasty, so all the arrangements are of this kind of linkage, which is convenient for later removal." As for how much time it takes, Li Daozong thought for a moment and said, "At most 1 pillar of incense time can open the passage for 20 horses to rush out side by side." Li Erdi said on horseback, "Open the channel, quickly. Everyone knows that once the camp starts howling, it won't be so fast to control. It will take at least 2 or 3 hours, which is still fast." Chapter 10. The Pig-Slaying Knives of the Team Leaders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The military command was like a mountain, and the Tang army began to quickly gather, led by 3,000 Xuanjia soldiers, with 16 guards in the center, followed by a force of 20,000 assembled troops. Just a little more than half a stick of incense, the Tang army rushed towards the Turkic camp along the open passage. At this moment, more and more Turkic troops were caught up in the roar of the camp, and Zheng Zi was like a headless fly, fighting with red eyes, all for self-protection, and the friendship of the robe was completely forgotten. At this time, the Tang army attacked the camp at night. The Tang army was divided into 2 groups, one led by Li Jing and Li Ji, and attacked the surrounding area of the camp. They used arrows to drive in the Turkic soldiers who had not yet joined the camp, expanding the range of the camp. Another group, led by Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin, directly attacked the military's tent. At this moment, the Turkic tent was also filled with panic, and Jieli was raging inside. The Turkic people claimed to be descendants of the wolf god, and it was only natural for them to be brave and skilled in battle. How could there be a roar in the camp? Yingxiao has always been seen only by the weak Tang people, Tuyuhun people, Zuyanchuo people, and Huehe people. Oh my god, Jieli is in sadness. Has the wolf god started abandoning your descendants? Yingxiao is actually a psychological problem of an army. Since ancient times, Turkic soldiers have been severely injured by the Tang army's so-called hidden weapons such as iron thistles and hooves along the way, and they have been trembling with fear all the way. Most of the Turkic generals were crude and uneducated, never managing the psychology of their soldiers. Coupled with the intense fighting and heavy casualties on the battlefield today, psychological problems accumulated in the hearts of the soldiers for over half a month. Without effective guidance, they finally erupted tonight, causing a camp roar. But as long as the Tang army does not attack the camp, although the Turkic army will suffer heavy casualties, even tens of thousands of people, as long as it reaches dawn, the roar of the camp can finally be suppressed. Unfortunately, at this moment, the Tang army attacked the camp. On the one hand, it intensified the scope of the camp's roar, and on the other hand, it carried out a beheading operation. Jieli cursed Kaonama while organizing forces to counterattack. But the soldiers on the periphery were constantly getting entangled in the howling of the camp. The most powerful Golden Wolf Army personal guards were ordered to protect the Khan at this time, causing the Tang army to enter an uninhabited territory and charge back and forth. Before dawn, the Turkic army was already less than 100,000. Li Erdi replaced the soldiers on the battlefield and organized a 30,000-strong army in the rear, even those who had received effective treatment and had recovered from minor injuries in the wounded camp in the past 2 days. They rushed to the Turkic camp to continue fighting. The battlefield was one-sided, with people beheading like cutting leeks, which made the leaders envious and expressed to Li Erdi that they wanted to go to the battlefield to fight. Your Highness, we have been in the military for many years and have a heart to kill the enemy. We sharpen our swords day by day and wait until today. The Turkic people dare to invade our Tang dynasty. Is our swords not suitable? It is important to note that the Tang dynasty values military merit the most, and it is an iron law that no one can be awarded a title without military merit. Moreover, military achievements change 9 times. As long as 1 or 2 enemies are killed, after retirement, their identity will immediately change when they return to the countryside. At the worst, they can also become a constable in the county government and become public officials in the future. They can receive imperial salaries and ensure a worry-free life for the rest of their lives. Li Erdi smiled bitterly as he looked at these thousands of rebel troops. It was not uncommon for rebel troops to go to the front line in history, but they were all forced into helplessness. The current rebel army clearly wants to share some of the credit. But Li Erdi, who came from the army, was most eager to understand the thoughts of the lower-class soldiers. Knowing that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them, he did not stop him and said, "Charging is allowed, limited to 2 sticks of incense. You must come back then, otherwise not only will you have no military achievements, but you will also be punished. Would you be willing to wait?" After the Nua leaders finished speaking, according to the usual cooking rules, 5 people formed a group, 20 people formed a small team, and 100 people formed a large team. Led by dozens of team leaders, they rushed towards the Turkic camp. The soldiers returning to the camp felt quite helpless when they learned that the leaders had also gone to battle. They had no hot food left and had to hastily take some pancakes, mix them with water, swallow them, and fight all night. They were tired, and when they had eaten enough, they quickly fell asleep. They all understood that when the leaders returned and fed them, they would go to battle again. After 30,000 fresh troops and thousands of rebel troops rushed into the Turkic camp, there was another battle. However, at this moment, the Turkic army was defeated like a mountain, and the whole army was panicked and had no intention of resisting. The performance of the army leaders on the battlefield is even higher than that of these assembled teams. They have been in the military for many years, have never eaten pork, and have seen pigs walk. Moreover, they have strict discipline, with 5 people forming a group, 1 person in charge of defense, and the other 4 pig-killing knives stabbing Turkish soldiers from different directions. This is killing Turkish soldiers as pigs, cutting off their heads, and returning to lead the military. Just as the sky gradually brightened, the new soldiers and the army also remembered the teachings of King Qing. After 2 sticks of incense, they heard the sound of drums for the retreating army in the rear and orderly retreated back. When the leaders came back, they washed the knives that killed Turks and began to make congee, stew noodles, kill sheep and cook meat. At the same time, they talked loudly about the number of enemies they killed. The leaders' camp was never so busy. Last night's battle, the Tang army had already laid the foundation for victory. If it weren't for Li Erdi cherishing the soldiers and letting them retreat to rest, as long as the fighting continued, the Turks would surely collapse. But at this time, the Turkic troops were less than 100,000 and there was no rest day and night, with low morale. Later, when the Tang soldiers rested, as long as they rushed forward to kill a few rounds, it would inevitably make the Turks regret going south. When the curling smoke rises from the kitchen, the fast horse reporting victory has already rushed towards Chang'an. This time, the Tang army faced the enemy with martial arts, and in the towering smoke of Chang'an city, the people were also worried, even unable to eat. It should be noted that since the founding of the Tang Dynasty, there have been years of wars, but this battle has been the most dangerous. It has been heard that the Turkic army has reached 300,000, and at this time, Chang'an's military strength is empty, and the towering wolf smoke is summoning the nearby army. If the Turks rush into Chang'an city, everyone will shudder to think about it. At noon on August 20th, a small group of messengers were rushing towards Guanghua Gate in Chang'an city. As long as you look at the horse they are riding, the horse's mane is clearly tied with red feathers. At the same time, they are wearing red tight-fitting clothes, a red headscarf on their head, and red gloves on their hands. This is the symbol of the red feather rush. The city gate official was suddenly shocked and quickly pushed the people who entered and exited the city gate to both sides. You should know, blocking the path of the red feather expeditionary, even if he was trampled to death by a horse, he would die in vain. The people also dodged and rushed to make way for the red feather expeditionary, but suddenly heard the red feather expeditionary shout in unison as the fast horse passed through the city gate. A great victory in martial arts, the Crown Prince's formation was beheaded by 200,000. A great victory in martial arts, the Crown Prince's formation was beheaded by 200,000. With a hint of smoke and dust, Red Feather hurriedly passed through the city gate, taking away the astonishment on the faces of the people and the ecstasy in their hearts.